Okay, well, look, turn my microphone up there. Hi, everybody. Well, look, here we are, week 5. And this week we take a little shift in our thinking, and we go from the idea of the government and the power of the government, and now we kind of look to the people. Okay, how are people supposed to act? And last week with the social contract, we kind of tinkered with that idea a little bit on the responsibility of people and so forth. But we're really up to this point. We've kind of focused on what is a good government, what's a just government, what should the government do, how much power should the government have, the notion of democracies and difficulty with democracy. But this week now, we look at the obligation of the citizen, right? Immanuel Kant talks to us about things like categorical imperatives, right? How you're supposed to treat people, the notion that you should treat people. Basically, the golden rule: treat people as you like to be, if you want to be treated yourself, sort of thing. Um, it's the notion of again, this personal respect for other people. All right. The idea is if it's good for Mark and I'm doing it because it's good for me, that means I've got to treat like it's good for everybody. Okay. I can't be mad at you for doing it if I would do it myself. Right. That whole notion that we have this obligation to other people. And in a civil society, it's not like the communist obligation that we talk about with Plato and some other things. But with Kant, again, it's it's treating people as you wish to be treated. Okay. If it's the right thing for me to do, it's the right thing for other people to do. We can't make any, kind of special carve outs and things like that. Well, in this case, in that case. No, it's these general rules. Okay, as I said, as Kant would say, as I said, he calls it the categorical imperatives. We'll talk more about that when we get to our discussion. Then the other thing is John Stuart Mill, and I've referenced him previously, but this idea of utility, right? Doing things that are going to do for the greatest good, right? And the obligation of the citizen in society. See, up to this point, as I said, we've kind of discussed and kind of talked about the obligation of the government to the citizen. Now we're kind of switching gears and looking at the obligation of the citizen to the citizen, right? With Kant's notion of making rules and the rule making, and then with Mill and the idea of we do things, from the utilitarian perspective, to for the greatest pleasure and to avoid pain. Okay, so those are the kinds of things as citizens we're going to do. We're going to try to avoid, things that we don't like and seek out things that we do. Personal utility. But then there's the collective utility as well, and we'll sort those things out. So we've got this notion of it's I don't really want to say call it the common good, but just think of it as using the usefulness of it, so to speak. And then of course we have Tocqueville, our third philosopher this week, and we look at this notion of basically just he talks about what's uniquely American. See, up to this point, everything's been about kind of people in general, but Tocqueville now takes a look at how do Americans apply democracy, right? And how do Americans then differ from other democracies that make it work? And that's the kind of thing we're going to look at this week. All right. So what we have then is three philosophers. As I say, we switch gears, right? We think about the citizen obligation with Kant, how people behave as they seek out their personal interest, Mill, and then finally trying to make some sense of this thing called democracy and how can we make democracy work in America, right? That then we focus in on the American style of democracy. All right. So that's what we're going to do this week. We'll talk about it in the live lecture. We'll cover some more specifics of each person along that line. But that's the way we want to get started this week. Okay. So it's not so much about government, but what about people? So now we're going to look at the people this week. All right. After we've created this society in our social contract. So now we look at our obligation. What do we need to be able to do to make society run in a good, stable order? Okay. All right. Well, you guys have a good week. And if you have any questions, as always, never hesitate to contact me. Bye bye now.